like one or two of them said, hey, you should come up and make a presentation to the board. And I'm thinking, I'm 13. If there was one skill I would get anybody to learn is the power of writing. Because what you'll find is that people who write really well, think really well, and guess what? They pitch really well. I've built all of my brands, everything I've ever done, through words. The thing that people aren't talking about with AI is if you're blessed to have read all the books, if you're blessed to have lived a really good, interesting life, is your questions are much better. You know what questions to ask because you can give you the answers, but you have to know the questions first.
My guest for this episode is David Hieatt. David has built brands from nothing with next to nothing just by understanding a few basic rules of how to tell his story, one sentence at a time. Bankrupt at 16 and thrown out of college at 18, he joined Saatchi and Saatchi at 21, and after a decade or so in advertising, he left to go back to Wales and build his own brands. He started Howies in 1995, sold it to Timberland, left, then started the Do Lectures, which was voted one of the top 10 ideas festivals in the world by The Guardian. He now runs Hiut Denim with his wife Claire, bringing jeans manufacturing back to their hometown of Caridigan. I first met David when I attended the Do Lectures back in 2017, and I was blown away by his passion for doing good in the world and his ability to make things happen. I'm delighted to have him on the podcast to share his wisdom and his amazing story. If you enjoy what you hear, please leave a review, like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell. You know what to do. It would mean the world to me and will help this podcast reach as many people as possible. You don't want to miss this. Enjoy. David, welcome to the show. My first question for you. In life, what's the most important thing you've ever had to pitch for?
Oh, I guess like would Claire marry me versus like somebody else? I mean, because I think that's been the luckiest break in my life. So I think convincing Claire that she, given that she had lots of other choices to marry me, I think that's been the most significant, remarkable thing in my life. So she might completely disagree. In terms of like, yeah, I should have literally not. Your pitch was really good, but honestly, didn't deliver.
Your partner's in like everything you do, which is very similar to myself and Laura. How have you walked that tightrope over the course of your marriage and your businesses to stay friends and create great work?
Yeah, as you know, it's the dinner table is like can suddenly become like a boardroom. You go like, and the distinction between like, are you at work or are you at home? And there's got to be a point where you don't talk about work, and so because otherwise it's like, man, you literally it's 24 hours a day type thing. I think the thing for me, what I've learned is to like shut up and just listen. And there's a default error of trying to be right, or and I've kind of learned to listen to Claire, and I sometimes as the more maybe like I think we're all creative, but like I'm full of ideas, putting stuff out there, and Claire will always question, like, well, what about this way? What about that way? And, what if that doesn't work? And so she's always battle testing, the ideas. And sometimes I just go, why can't you just say you love it? Because I love it. And so there is that thing of no grit, no pearl. And so sometimes I've learned to really perhaps try and think about my ideas more about why they are good. And, in terms of like, making them a bit more robust.
Yeah. Fascinating. If Claire's the kind of winning pitch, is there one that's got away? Is there something that you kind of think back on and think, oh, I'd love to have been involved in that?
It's a good question. I'll tell you a couple of things which are leading to this one. And I remember being in Washington, D.C. and I was running Howies, and Claire was sleeping, and I'd written my pitch for Steve Case, who started AOL, and it was a big important pitch, and I was in the shower because that's the only place I could, the room that we had was so small, and so I was in the shower. I didn't want to disturb Claire, and I'd forgotten my my talk, my pitch, and so somebody had sent me a fax of it in the hotel, and the fax was just one stream of paper. So I'm in the shower. It's like 4 a.m. because I can't sleep, and I'm reading this thing, and I'm like so nervous, and I'm just going, and it's the most important pitch I've ever done, right? So, and I'm reading it, and then Claire wakes up and goes, "How do you sleep?" I'm going, I didn't actually sleep. I was in a shower, in some hotel in Washington D.C. with the longest piece of paper in history, and just thinking, "Oh my God, this is." And I'm not a natural. I'm much more happy being the introvert. I'm much more happy not being center stage. I'm much more happy in that place. And suddenly, I'm in the biggest boardroom you ever seen. The table in this room is so big they had to get a crane to put it in. And Steve Case started AOL. I think he went and bought Zipcar and did all these things. And we were told at the start of the meetings he's not going to make a decision for like 2 to 3 weeks. He's going to think about it. And I had and there was all these powerful, influential people there in this posh building, and I just went. I took a deep breath, and I just went, I'm absolutely going to go and crush this. There is no part of me in this conversation where I'm going to fail. And I literally don't remember breathing, and I just went bam, 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 bam. I was like, and I was nervous. I had prepared, and I did care, but I knew it was only one shot, and I knew the chances are he was pretty slim that I was going to go and say yes. And afterwards, an hour afterwards, they came back into the room and said, like Steve said, he'd never seen a talk like it, and he wants to do the deal, and he doesn't have to think about it anymore. He's convinced. And that was like, and up until that point, I'd always been so like in fear of doing talks, and I always thought everybody else was better than me. And there was something in me that day where I was just going, I am not going home unless I get this guy to say yes. And I was in that moment where it was kind of brief, but like I felt almost unstoppable in that moment.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I think back to those days as an actor on stage, and if you were still in that process of being kind of only just familiar with the lines, it was just destroying to be in front of an audience in that zone. You had to kind of know it inside out and back to the front, to the point that you were almost bored with it, so that you could speak it as if for the first time. And I think, when I work with clients now, I often get them to think more in sort of frameworks than scripts, because scripts can be massively debilitating. If you've got your kind of story arc, if you know where you're going, if you've got those kind of key messages or key stories that you want to get across, like how you join them up is not so important. But if you try and follow every single word that you wrote down beforehand, you completely screw yourself up. So you left the kind of advertising world to set up Howies with Claire back in 1995, and I've read in various places that you didn't pay yourselves for a while, and it was all a little bit kind of hairy. How do you go about pitching businesses into existence? So not just Howies, but Hiut, the Do lectures. Like, what's your starting point?
I think there's the starting point has to be there's something that won't go away. So like there's something where you just go, man, like why do I keep caring about this thing? Why does this thing still pop into my head? Why does it matter when it doesn't even pay me? And sometimes your hobbies are very good clues to what is your natural, like, where you really have that gravity for something. And like, I mean, the thing about Howies was, to give you an example, is, I went to go and, at that advertising agency, and I took a £20,000 pay cut, but my boss didn't actually like really want to like say yes to any of my work. And I spent a year and a half working really hard and getting almost nothing out of it. Apart from I had this big swatch of ads, and I just thought there was a voice there. And so I turned them literally into t-shirts. And I remember like being on a football pitch and somebody's going, "Why are you doing t-shirts? Like, I mean, why are you doing a t-shirt brand?" And I'm going, "Oh no, I'm not doing t-shirt brand. I'm going to build the best brand in the world." And he just laughed. And the interesting thing is he became one of our biggest shareholders. But I think is that thing of when things don't go away and they keep coming back to you, and basically it's like the cream keeps rising to the top, and you force it down like a beach ball in the sea, but it keeps popping back up. And you should be aware of the things that keep popping back up, because maybe in a way that's the thing that is really central to your heart. And I think you mustn't ignore those things, because like and I know there's two camps going, "Oh, go and do the thing that you really love the most," and some people say that's the best advice or the worst advice. My thing is this: is what happens if you don't do the thing that you love, and your last breaths are, "Hey, I mean, I did things that I was effective at." You go, "Great, that's a really great fucking life that is." So it's like you should pay attention to things that keep popping back up, because that is where your heart is telling you, go, "Hey, I know you love this. Why didn't you try and work this out? Why didn't you go and do that?" So that's what we did with Howies. We started in 95. We started paying ourselves in 2001. The Do Lectures came into existence in an odd way. And, we were invited by Patagonia to go to their tools camp, but we couldn't go. And I said, "Don't worry, I'll watch the talks online." At that point, they weren't filming them. And I went, "Oh, well, maybe I'll do my own conference and film them and just give that stuff away." So, and then we did it once, and it was never planned. There was no business plan. There was no funding. There was no anything. It was like, "Oh, that's cool. We should, But it was also helped by a guy called Tony Davison, who sent us a text, and he said, and the text was, "Don't just stand there, do something, Dick Dastardly." And it was at that evening where we were running Howies going, and we always want to how can we help others go and fulfill their potential? Because I think that's a really interesting life, where is if you got really pretty close to your potential, at that point, then you've had a good life. And so again, like with the Do Lectures, we didn't pay ourselves for the first 10 plus years. And people go, like, you've just kept going. You go, "Oh." And then like all these companies want to buy the Do Lectures, and you go, "Oh, that's kind of interesting." And you didn't do it for that. It was just you were just answering a call of curiosity. And lo and behold, the Do Lectures is fantastic. I love it. I'm proud to be a single part of it. I kind of, as a person, I love learning. Just kind of, I don't think that's ever going to go away. I think, but the people I've met in my life has been, like some of the best people I've ever met in my life, like have been because of that. And so answering the call to curiosity, that beach ball that's underwater and it pops back up all the time, you should pay attention to that. And guess what? In terms of pitching, when you absolutely love it and get it and feel it, it's just an exchange of energy. And so
Yeah.
all you're doing when you're pitching, you're exchanging the energy. It's not even about the fucking words. It's like, oh, they feel it. I feel it too. And that's the pitch. The pitch is the energy. It's the transfer of energy.
That's so true. So much of what you do seems to have a kind of story at the center of it. So Hiut Denim is founded around the premise of getting the town of Caridigan making jeans again. Like what comes first, the business or the story, and how much time do you spend crafting that?
I think that, the story is, every business, every brand is a story. And some brands tell that story well, and some brands do not tell that story well. And I think as creators, as founders, is we have to be as good at the story as making the product or service. And people think, oh, it'll sell itself. No, it won't. Like you think like somebody else isn't going to be as good as you. They completely are. And so you must pay attention to the story. And to answer the question is like, what comes first? I knew when we were doing Hiut Denim that it would be hard. I didn't realize it was going to be this hard. I kind of knew because I'd already done like Howies. Do you mean it's like and I had a call with Yvonne Chenard, and I was halfway up the hill, and I arranged to have a call with him at a certain time, and we nearly did something with Howies in Patagonia, but it didn't come off, and we were chatting about that, and he said, well, how can I help you, David? And I said, well, it's just really simple. Is like, how did you keep hold of Patagonia? Because I didn't keep hold of Howies, and I want to make sure that I absolutely keep hold of this. And he just said in like sort of low key thing, just, hey, it's just like 40 years hard work and 2 remortgages. And I went, yeah, I kind of knew it. But the metaphor in that story was, I put the phone down. I appreciated his call, but I had to start on the bike halfway up the hill, and that was the metaphor. Is I knew it'd be hard, and it was hard. But if we only choose easy things in life, is like there's going to be a lot of competition. Because like smart people just go, hey, I'm just going to choose easy. But there's a point where if you do really hard things, you're very, very soon you're like just like almost a category 1. You go like, oh, let's go and start a jeans factory in West Wales. Well, ain't nobody else going to do it. So by definition, when you start out, your story really is how unique you are, how different you are. And I was never bored of like saying the story over and over again. Like, hey, my town is making jeans again. And that's a story of rebirth. And you go, okay, rebirth. And then it's David versus Goliath. You go, great, my name's David. So it's kind of these things where you go, like, you are in the storytelling business regardless of what business you are in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is like that thing of not being afraid to tell the story as well, because so many of us kind of know it and then get all very awkward about sharing it, and feel that we're blowing our own trumpet or whatever the phrase might be. And in reality, it takes so many iterations of that story for someone to finally hear it and understand it and take it on board, that you can repackage it in multitude of different ways before it actually reaches your audience and they get it. Sorry to interrupt, but before we continue with the episode, I've got a favor to ask. I'm on a mission to get this podcast in the hands of as many people as possible. So if you found what you've heard so far valuable, please, please, please like, comment, rate, and subscribe. These things make a huge difference to our reach. And if you're open to it, if you happen to know just one person, someone who, just like you, would benefit from listening to these conversations, then please share the podcast with them. Let's get on with it. What's been the most kind of challenging thing about sharing the Hieatt story?
The challenge, like, has been and always will be, is it's really a story about a town, and so, like, if we don't succeed, it's like, and it's a small town, and you care about the town, and you care about the people in the town, and you care about, actually, like, you want to win, but you're playing in a game that's really hard to win. The economics are hard. They were born hard. They were hard at the start. They were hard in COVID. They were hard in a place where, all your costs of manufacturing go up, and they're hard when people got less money to spend. So it was, I call it the gobstopper, but not in terms of colors. Like, there's different layers on a gobstopper, but there's different levels of pain on Hieatt, where you just go, oh, that's hard. Now, what you need now is more pain, and you're going, fuck. And to talk about the pitch, because I literally just did this yesterday, and I think this is a good thing for everyone to think about, is you should only pitch stuff that you are absolutely in tune with. Mm-hmm. If you have any doubt, if you're doing it and your heart sinks, because for a year I knew that I had to go and raise money, and for Hieatt, if we're going to go and reach the potential of it. And I've always fought it, because I always didn't want to do it. I'm not very good at having anybody telling me what to do. And we have like 10 shareholders, and they're amazing. And so the thought of going raising money, especially in a tough market, was just, I just didn't feel it at all. And so what I pitched yesterday was going, hey, we're not going to raise money. And we're going to do a thing of, we're going to cap our production at 10,011 pairs forever. And what we're going to do is we're going to scale influence now, because of our ideas and our innovations and our inventions. And we're going to raise money by actually, getting loans from 30 amazing believers. And we're going to pay that loan back with each pair of jeans. And so every time we sell a pair of jeans, it's 50 pence to that person, 50 pence to that person. And so we've done something which is like quite novel, and I haven't heard too much about it. And to be fair, I got the idea from Brian, who was coaching me at the time, who's amazing. And he got the idea from Seth Godin, who we've made jeans for. So that's amazing. But it felt good. Do you mean it felt like, do you know what? If I'm going to go and raise money and spend the next 10 years building Hieatt, that feels like I want to do that. And I think sometimes we set out on paths, and our heart and our stomach tells us they sink a bit when we think about it. And that's when we have problems pitching, because we don't feel it. And therefore the energy can't be transferred. And so you must, importantly, if you're pitching, is you must feel the energy first. So you should only do stuff that you're completely in tune to. And me trying to work out the plan for a year was very difficult. Like, I had to sell bunches of things to make sure we didn't go out of business. My mum was passing, Claire had to have an operation, like Tessa was ill. It was a difficult year. But when you're walking through that difficulty, and you still have the belief for something, it's a test. And so you go, like, you're tested, and you go, oh, do you believe in this thing? You go, yeah, I believe in this thing to the point of I'm willing to risk everything for it. Mm-hmm. And that makes you quite fucking interested, in as much as going, I think this person really believes in it. And like, we've all been around tables where you go, that person's energy is amazing. And if you're defiant, and if you are there going, like, no, I'm into this, to the point of, if it takes me down, I'm going. You go, okay. and it's kind of interesting, because then you think, I think he's into it. And then people just go, I think he's into it. You go, yeah, I think he is. And you go, I think that's where you just get to a certain age. You go, I'm not doing stuff that is going to please the crowd just to please the crowd. I'm doing stuff because I feel it. And if I don't feel it, I ain't doing it. And that's really like, and you don't have to be my age. You can be 21. Just like, you've got to do stuff that is in tune with how you feel.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, like, if you don't feel it, the transfer energy is wrong. And I know previous speaker for you is, Trevor Blake. He's all about energy.
Yeah.
And I really love how he thinks about the world. And I think that thing of transferring energy, but it's got to come therefore from the truth. And if it comes from the truth, then it's quite compelling. That's when the pitch is, you go, wow. They don't listen to the words; they listen to how you made them feel.
Yeah, you talk a lot about purpose. You've written a book on purpose, do purpose, and it seems to be, as we're having this conversation, really at the heart of everything you do. For people that are listening, whether they're starting their own business or whether they're in a job, like how do you go about identifying what your purpose is, and how do you build your life around that?
I mean, it's a great question because it's quite deep. I mean, it's you got to find some kind of meaning from something, and if you're going through life and if it's a job and like the commute to work on a Monday is hard if what is at the other end of that commute doesn't have any meaning for you. So it's not really that there's like an hour commute. It's like the really hard thing is like at the other end is like disappointment. It's like, I've sold out. And I think a lot of people do that. And I think and the salary check is a bribe. And it's very powerful bribe. And to wean yourself off that bribe is really hard because it will probably come at a cost of discomfort. You've got to have not as posh a house. You've got to have not as, like the status goes away. But there's another game with status where you're doing something that you really love. That's status. And you're doing it with energy that you really, value. But also you're doing it with time that you think, I want to give my time to this. Because if you resent giving time to something, it's eating at the soul. And the soul is like, it's just going, hey, I know you don't give a shit about this. And the only one happy day in the month is the salary check. The trouble is the maths isn't very good. Because it's for 20 days, you are unhappy, and then on weekends you live for the weekends. The maths of living for the weekends is very poor. It's like you've only got 2 days and you've got 5 other days. You've got 5 days of unhappiness. So I think you've got to listen to your hobbies and your interests. They tell you clues. Which bit of the paper do you pick up? Like what's the magazines that you read? What are the podcasts you listen to when no one's paying you to do it? And then you go, there's some clues here. And like a life lived with like meaning it sounds like I'm not a monk. I'm just going, I just want to do stuff that I really care about with people that I really love being with. And then, then it kind of feels like, how's work? You go, I don't really class it as work, but I guess it is. I'm working, but it's not work. And so there's another, like Starbucks say there's a third place. And there's, like there's work and there's home. I think the third place is really that thing where it doesn't feel like work. And it kind of like isn't play. And I think that third space is the place where you found meaning in the work that you do. Therefore, you're going to go, hey, might as well be good at this thing. Why don't I just be good at this thing? What? actually, why not just be the fucking best at this thing? And then just go, hey, yeah, how was work? Yeah, kind of worked at things. I didn't really work. I worked at it.
There's a fearlessness there in what you're saying, that that you're not continually looking over your shoulder and comparing yourself to others. You're sort of staying in lane and following your own curiosity. One thing that strikes me about you is that you seem to be continually launching ideas. You don't hold back. You have something that kind of crops up, and you go, let's test it. Let's see what happens. I think I remember seeing something about club at one point recently. What do you do? Because you can't win at everything. So what do you do when it doesn't go to plan? Like how do you bounce back?
I think it's, I've done a ton of launches. It's absolute crickets. And then you have to go back and go, like, actually, like, where did it actually go wrong? And I think sometimes it's about you're answering, like, it could be that you're answering a question about, like, hey, I need to launch to go and get some cash flow. Which is never really the best way to launch, by the way. But yeah. I mean, I can't talk about the club that you just mentioned, but that club, like, was 2 years of me thinking that would be a cool club. Like, it's almost the most difficult club on earth to go and be part of, and so you go, like, it's almost impossible. Like, no one has. And I'm not supposed to speak about it, but I guess what the point I'm making is that was germinating for like 2 years. And when things like that thing I keep saying, like the beach ball under the water that keeps popping back up, I find those are the best ideas. And when you force something, and almost when you force something and you look back, you go, what worked, what didn't work? Is the stuff that you forced is the stuff that didn't work. Yeah. And I think there's lessons there where you go, the energy has to be right.
You also do a lot of beta testing now. So you're very open about saying, this isn't perfect, but there's a good idea here and I want your help to work it out. Where did that kind of confidence and that idea to do that come from?
I mean, it's been a long time coming, and I think that thing where you iterate and you learn and you iterate and you learn, but there's that thing of, like, where you go, oh my God, this second version is so much better than the first version. And especially, like, I'm writing a book at the moment, but I'm also writing it in such a way that I'm actually improving it as I write it, because I'm putting it out to the community. They're telling me, what is good and what's not good. I'm doing it through useful books. And I kind of love that thing of going, like, what if your first draft isn't actually very good? And then people are committed to this book, and you're going, oh, yeah, it could have been so much better. You go, what if you improved it before you actually launched it? And actually, if you think about it, we do that a lot in terms of, like, software. It's, we've got an upgrade, we've got another upgrade and an upgrade. But when we write a book, it's very final. It's committed to print. And you go, so that's very final. But if you could, like, go and do, I've done like 6 different beta tests with this book before I actually learn. And I've learned that chapter 3 was too complicated. And so they would never get to chapter 4. And that would be the whole reason why the whole book didn't work. And isn't it better to learn that before you launch it? Mm. And so when you start thinking like that, you go, oh my God, like there's a gobstopper of pain, but there's a gobstopper of, like, being really, really good, where you go, next layer. Oh, and it's like the ultimate game. where you go, next layer. Oh, wow. And so that's kind of like, but you've got to have a certain confidence to go like, hey, do you know what? Right now, it's good. It might not be great.
That's fascinating. You talk about it as a game, and I think that mindset is really powerful. That it's not finished. It's ongoing. It's a process, and if you can enjoy the process rather than fixate on the outcome, then like everyone has a better time as they do it. You use writing, I think, as a kind of primary vehicle for creation. You've built brands on the back of newsletters, and your kind of copywriting is always outstanding. I love reading your stuff. But you also mentioned that you're dyslexic. So how have you built that skill? What techniques have you used to get better in that field?
Well, I think if there's one thing that everyone should learn, and especially in a world that is attention, in the attention economy, is the most valuable thing you can get is attention. But you got to make that attention worth it. And you go, oh, I've got attention. You go like, was it worth it? And writing is the best vehicle that I know of, to get your thinking across. But there's a byproduct to writing of when you write, your thinking gets sharper and clearer. And therefore your writing gets sharper and clearer. And so there's like this beautiful circle of going, hey, the more I write, the more clear my thinking is. The more clear my thinking is, the better I write. And you're going, fuck. So you can build into existence like stuff through words. I've built all of my brands, everything I've ever done, through words. Because no one, like quite rightly, has ever given me a marketing budget. And so I've got to stand out by going, hey, I'm going to get you to pay attention to this, and you will feel something for this either way. And that's the power of writing. And if there's one skill I would get anybody to learn, is the power of writing. Because what you'll find is that people who write really well think really well, and guess what? They pitch really well. Because it's the source. And so they've gone to the source and made the source really good, and therefore they're made from concentrate. And so it's insane. Like, and people just go, I'm not talking English, I'm not talking Shakespeare, I'm talking about how do you write for clarity? And if you can do that and actually make them feel something for it, you're unstoppable.
Do you think that given the dawn of AI and everyone's rushed to ChatGTP to write me a crap bit of copy for my brochure, or to write me an email reply to my boss, do you think that actually that presents an opportunity for those that can write authentically themselves to stand out even more?
Oh, completely. And the thing is, there's always going to be the amateur who's going, oh, I'll get ChatGPT to do this. And you go like, hey, the amateur is now like even worse. You go, yeah, good job. Yeah, I love AI. But writing is a creative act. And so like, and the ideas you have had or gonna have are not on ChatGPT, because ChatGPT is backward looking and not forward looking. And so the better writers are gonna do incredibly well, but the lazy writers will use this tool in the most laziest way, and if anything, they're gonna get less attention. And it might take them less time to do, but it's less rewarding when they actually do it. The thing that people aren't talking about with AI is, if you're blessed to have read all the books, if you're blessed to have lived a really good, interesting life, is your questions are much better. You know what questions to ask, because it can give you the answers, but you have to know the questions first.
Yeah, they're not going to do it for you.
Yeah.
In terms of building that muscle, what's your kind of routine look like in terms of honing your writing craft? Have you got a kind of process that you go through?
I mean, I sort of I mean, if you ask my daughters and Claire, they'll go, because I keep saying, like, man, if you can write for 3 hours a day, or if you can work for 3 hours a day in flow, and that doesn't mean like solid 3 hours. It could be an hour, cup of tea, another hour. So, but 3 hours of really focused work, you're probably done at that point. And so, like, my process is, I'll, and I haven't set an alarm for, unless I go into an airport, I don't set an alarm. So I haven't done that for years. So my process is, when I get up, I've got to absolutely definitely make Claire a cup of tea at 7:00. And then I'm free to go and write. And then I'll write for an hour, break, an hour, break, an hour, break. And then I'm kind of done. Then that's my thing. Just like, if you can take distractions away from your process, you're almost definitely going to be better than anybody else. Because people are just not paying attention to their craft. They want to write, but they also want to scroll on their phone. And she's like, I mean, if you actually want to win, all you got to do is be able to switch your phone off for 3 hours a day. And because most people can't do that. 99% of people cannot do that. They know where the button is.
It's very uncomfortable, though, isn't it? I mean, I think that act of the perception of disconnect is huge. I did a 5-day silent retreat recently, and
nice.
Being in that space with no distraction, like, the first 20 minutes are probably a little bit uncomfortable, and then once you get over it, like, I really didn't want to plug back in. They handed us our phones back, and I was like, oh man, do I have to? Can I crush it? But yeah, I think that bravery to walk away from distraction, and I'll be very honest, I struggle with this myself. I mean, like, this morning my phone was off until 10 o'clock because I needed to focus on a project, and that makes all the difference. But if I just turn it on to check something, the rabbit holes are huge.
Yeah. And it's just that thing of going, like, I mean, it's really a case of, like, before your phone get into some flow. And if you can do that, and then you just go like, oh, how do you do all this stuff, Dave? I'm going, I just kind of, I work without, the other stuff. And I'm not a saint. I mean, literally, I'm just going like, but it's that thing, which is my phone is on that chair over there that my mate from Ireland, sent me a chair, and I'm going, and now the only thing that sits in there is my phone, but it sits in there a lot, and so then you go like, your best thinking, the thing that will make you stand apart from everyone else is where you can really think about stuff. And so when you're writing you'll write something. And I mean, I just launched something yesterday, pitched something, I wrote it. And then when I came back, people make the mistakes in writing is they try to edit in the same day. You need to have, like, you write it, you dump it down, and then you come back, you edit it, and then you come back with new energy the next day, you edit it again. And then, not for like every piece, but there's certain pieces that matter more, and you have to know which ones to pay attention to. So the deep work really comes into that thing of going, like, you gotta go and give your craft your focus. And if you don't give it focus, you're not going to do your best work. You'll never write the best words. You'll never go and do the best pitch, whatever it is, because it requires you to really do some thinking that you haven't done before. And that is hard. If you do that 3 hours a day, you're knackered. It's like, man, how can you be finished after 3 hours? I mean, the whole notion of the 8-hour work thing in terms of brain science is just rubbish. It's
nonsense. And if we're honest, we all get there, don't we? We're like, 5 o'clock on a Friday, there's can be nothing left in the tank if you haven't if you haven't put space in for that kind of recovery. David, I could geek out on this stuff forever. It's been so brilliant having an opportunity to pick your brains. I think to wrap up, I'd like to ask you a final question. If you could go back and give that younger version of yourself a little bit of advice, what would you go back and tell him?
I would tell him to put football magazine down and read some books, and really learn about writing, because I didn't know it at the time, but writing would be my sort of toolkit, and actually reading lets you know what that toolkit could really do, and so I would just read some really good books and then go and read them again.
It's that second piece that's actually even more valuable than the first, isn't it? Go back and revisit it. Don't just read it once. Yeah. David, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
My pleasure. Absolutely loved it.
Thanks for listening to the Why Life's a Pitch podcast. If you'd like to improve the way you pitch and communicate, I'm giving away a special gift to all my listeners. We've developed the Pitching with Impact scorecard to help you benchmark your pitch performance in 6 key areas. It'll take you less than 5 minutes to complete, and you'll receive a detailed, personalised report packed full of insights and ideas to help you improve and grow. Just head over to dominiccolenso.com/scorecard to get started.